there's three properties of this water that we're going to talk about, but they're born out of one thing. They're born out of hydrogen, H2, hydroxyl ion. They're born out of hydrogen. Hydrogen is a very small, probably the smallest molecule that there is, and it's the most permeable. It gets through everything. It's unbelievably important to our health. The three properties that we're aware of, the concepts that we teach, are alkalizing. This water is alkaline, but something that's alkaline is one thing. Something that alkalizes you is more important. This water alkalizes you. Alkalinity is the state of health, and we'll talk about each one of these in terms. This is the strongest antioxidant known. Okay, 2 glasses of this, 2 12-ounce glasses of this has as many antioxidants as 5 pounds of blueberries. This is probably the most powerful part about this water. And superhydrating is a term that I made up. It's actually called restructured water. So the medical term for this is electrolyzed reduced water. Sometimes the scientists will say, instead of reduced, they'll say restructured. Okay? And it goes through the process. It's not a chemical. It's an electrical charge that we're going to add to this water that's going to change the molecule size and the molecule bonding of these water molecules, and it's going to make it easy to drink. And you just got to experience it. Right? So it's these three things we'll talk about in terms. We'll start with alkalinity. The opposite of alkalinity is acidity. Acidity is synonymous with toxins. Acidity is related to an anaerobic environment, sugars, right? The dangers of acidity. The countless names attached to illnesses don't really matter. What matters is they come from the same root cause. Too much tissue acid waste in the body. And this is acidity that could come on its own, or it's a byproduct of dehydration. Either way, acidity is an environment of sickness and premature aging. So we want to alkalize our bodies. We want our bodies to be slightly alkaline. Dr. Otto Warburg is a German scientist that won the Nobel Prize in 1931, and he figured out the cause of cancer. The cause of cancer is an acidic environment. 100% of all cancers, 100% of every cancer cannot survive in an alkaline environment. We are not allowed to make any medical claims, but if you know that your cancer needs an alkaline or an acidic environment for those cancer cells to feed, your goal should be to take away that acidic environment, aka alkalize yourself. Right? Alkalizing yourself is one of probably the biggest concepts in health, and we've really just been talking about it for about 25 years. The Japanese were talking about it quite a few years before that, but this is important. Right? These are a couple quotes from his research. Cancerous tissues are acidic, whereas healthy tissues are alkaline. Period. Right? There's no equivocation. There's no conditions there. Cancerous tissues are acidic, always. Every cancer. All normal cells have an absolute requirement for oxygen. Our cells need oxygen. But cancer cells can live without oxygen. Anaerobic environment. A rule without exception. There's no exception to this rule. You take away the acidic environment, and if it's not too late, you can take away your cancer. Right? And I'm saying that as a generality. I'm not making, and we are not allowed to make health claims. Cancer needs acidity. We all know that. Why doesn't a doctor deal with that? Number one, they're not trained that way. They're trained in the modalities to control the chemotherapy and all of the huge things we do when we have cancer that are not always good. They don't deal with the source and the causes of disease. They deal with the treatment of symptoms. If you look at a parallel, a graph of how the acidity from a culture goes up, it goes up in lockstep with cancer. It goes in lockstep with diabetes. Right? Acidity is toxins. Toxins in our body that we have way more exposure to. They're just in our bodies. Our bodies are completely built to deal with all these toxins until you get to a certain level, and it's just a question of inundation. It's a question of too much. Where does acidity come from? Now, if we think about, here's where I want to make kind of a break for teaching purposes of life 100 years ago and life now. If we look at where acidity comes from, and you look at how many of these didn't exist 100 years ago, you realize that cancer, it was one in several thousands 100 years ago. The chances of getting cancer were so rare. When I was growing up and we would hear of a kid with cancer, it was so tragic and it was so horrible to hear. But now we hear it all the time, and it just happens way more. And it's because of the acidity. It's because of the environment. It's because of the food, because of the air, because of the water we're drinking. These things are modern problems. Our modern solution are going to be pills. 100 years ago, our problems were bacteria or infections or accidents or unhealthy work things. Our problems now and our problems where we've peaked in terms of our longevity, the general populace, we've peaked. We're going backwards now. And it's because of our habits. It's because of everything that we put in our body, everything is acidic. And we've got to get those toxins out. Dr. Cryle said there's no natural death. All deaths from a so-called natural causes are merely the end point of a progressive acid saturation. And we don't. One of the things that comes to my mind, and it's a little brutal for an example, is if you talk about senior living facilities, you talk about hospice. Some of these facilities have a certain smell, and it smells like urine. And it isn't urine. It isn't incontinence. It's the acids that are coming off the body. It's the smell of dying. And natural causes. We're finding out there's a lot of studies that say there's nothing in our bodies that say we shouldn't live past even 200 years. And in 200 years from now, we might be saying 400 years. Right? It's about choices. It really is about choices, and that's why you see such a disparity in people's health and people's longevity. Is what they're doing here. Acidity. Here's the symptoms, and you're going to see some similarities to dehydration. Beginning symptoms, intermediate symptoms, and advanced symptoms. You see that there's nothing that's not included in acidity. Acidity is an environment of disease. And just because we may get different diseases doesn't mean we can't talk about what do all those diseases have in common. Acidity, dehydration, and oxidation. Huge concepts for sickness. And there's nothing that we can include here. All other forms of cancer and many more. Right? These are all conditions of acidity. In terms of reverse aging is a great book, and it is about this water. And Sang Wang was a Korean researcher, and he said, in terms of being healthy and living longer, removing acidic waste from your cells is more important and more effective than diet and exercise. Getting the acids out. And if we think about what water does, water's what flushes our cells. We're going to talk about why this water flushes our cells way better. Sherry Rogers, MD, after carefully evaluating the results and the advice of hundreds of individuals, I'm convinced that toxicity in the form of acid waste is the primary cause of degenerative disease, what we call lifestyle diseases. What we call here is choices, right? We suffer from toxins, and toxins is acidic waste. Right? They're in our food, they're everything we breathe it in, they're in our waters, they're in our soils. If we think about a fish tank, just a fish tank, no metaphors. If we think about a fish tank, and you have a fish tank and I have a fish tank, and you change your water in your fish tank once a month, and I change mine every 2 weeks, whose fish you think are going to live longer? Mine, because your fish will probably die sooner, and they will die. Let's say you stopped cleaning your fish. Your fish die. What did they die of? They die of acidity. They die of too much acid, right? They're in water. They can breathe. You can continue to feed them. They've got feed. They will die because the pH will get so low that they will basically toxify. Now, if we look at that concept is how much are we exchanging that water? You increase the rate of exchange in that fish tank, and you extend lives. You create an environment for health. Now let's think of that fish tank as our bodies. Because really, if I'm 75% water and I'm standing here and none of it's leaking out, I'm a walking aquarium. I'm 75% water. If I don't exchange, and if I drink 1 glass of water and you drink 10 a day, you're going to be healthier because you're exchanging that water quicker. It's a huge concept of health. So the exchange is huge. But also, let's think about each one of these fish representing a different lung or a different system or concept in your body. If that's the case, the interstitial fluid, the water, what is that state of that water? Is that water acidic or is it alkaline? Because it makes a difference. Is that water an antioxidant or is it oxidizing? And is that water penetrating? Remember the super hydrating? Is that restructured water? Is it getting into the cells of the liver? Is it getting into the cells of the heart? Because to me, that's the most fascinating part of this water is the penetration ability. And that's because of the third property. We'll talk about that in a second. Think about the fish tank, the rate of exchange and the quality of the water. It always goes back to how much water are you drinking and what's the kind of water you're drinking. Poor health and symptoms of disease are the result of the accumulation of acid waste in the body over time. Doctors can give us a really good feeling of health, like we're on the right track because we've taken a couple tests, blood tests, urine tests, whatever the tests are. And they say, well, you pass all the tests. But if you're doing the wrong things, one day you're going to go to the doctor and he's going to say you're really sick. And you're going to say, Doc, I thought you've been saying I was good. I pull this out for one point only. There is no free lunch. If you do bad things, the bill's going to become due. You're going to get sick eventually. There's always that person that lives to 100 that did all the wrong things. That's an exception, right? Those are exceptionally genetic people, and that's not what we want to kind of tie our philosophy to. Accumulation of acid waste. It builds up. It stays in our system, and it comes out in the form of any sickness, right? We're looking at the source material here. Hydration and alkalinity. Over-acidification has been correlated with both disease and aging. And if an organism, us, can eliminate waste more efficiently, its life expectancy and overall health will be enhanced. That is the book, The Water Puzzle and the Hexagonal Key. Another word for this water is hexagonal water. We'll talk about that in a second. This water is restructured water, and Mishuk John is another Korean researcher that studied this water. And that's a fascinating book on this water. Oxidation. Oxidation is a natural process of just anything being exposed to air, right? There's oxidation. This is oxidizing water, which made these rust and will continue to make these rust. It's a natural process, and our body creates alkaline buffers to handle this. The problem is we're just overloaded. We've just got too much crap in our environment. We put too much crap in our body, and we oxidize at a faster rate. So the rate of oxidation is what is controllable to a certain extent. We're all going to oxidize to a certain point. I'm oxidizing now because I'm in the air. But it's controlling the rate. Oxidation is very real and it's very measurable. We're going to measure it here. We can measure it in millivolts, and it's a function of hydrogen. We have an oxidation reduction potential meter here that we'll show in a minute that shows the property of liquids or anything we put in this, including air. And it shows, is it an oxidant? Is it an antioxidant? And it's based on H2O. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. One of those H's is positive, one of those is negative. The positive is acidic, the negative is alkaline. You're drinking the negative water. Okay? Oxidation can be measured, and we will do that in a second. It's the potential energy of the substance. Okay? Oxidation to us is synonymous with aging and sickness. And oxidation with us is synonymous with inflammation. Now, if you just Google the source of all disease, and I have trouble with this, right, because it's a chicken and egg question. Source of all disease, it's inflammation. Inflammation really happens, it's a beautiful thing when you get injured and your body uses inflammation to protect the area and to heal, right? But after a while, chronic inflammation is debilitating and causes disease and is with every disease. So the reason I say this, it's an oversimplification, is because is inflammation a cause or an effect? It's both, right? It's a circle. We've got to interrupt it. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure out if it's a cause or effect. We just have to interrupt that cycle. And we have to get anti-inflammatories in our body and not pills. Anti-inflammatories are synonymous with antioxidants. So to the extent that you can get antioxidants in your body is to the extent that you can get rid of inflammation, you can stop feeding diseases. Oh, remember, this is the strongest antioxidant. No, Kangen Water is the strongest antioxidant that we know of. Free radicals are oxidants, and we know that. So free radicals, and why is Kangen Water the strongest antioxidant? because of the process of electrolysis. Because we don't use chemicals, we're basically separating the H's. And because those H's that are separated and the water that you're drinking has millions of free radical scavengers, millions of electrons that don't need to be paid back. And what do I mean by payback? If I ate a bunch of blueberries are great, they're an antioxidant, and blueberries are going to offer that missing electron, right? So basically what's happening with a free radical, which is a unstable oxygen molecule, is that it should have 4 pairs of electrons on the outer ring, right? It only has 3 pairs of 1, so it's got 1 missing electron. That makes that unstable. It needs another cell to donate that electron to make it, to get rid of it being a free radical. When a blueberry donates to that free radical, it neutralizes the free radical, and that's a good thing. However, that blueberry that donated it will be, over time, become a free radical and will need to be neutralized in itself. So then we eat more blueberries. And it's the cycle, and it's what we live on, and it's a great thing to do. Raw vegetables or raw fruit or eat antioxidants. I'm never going to say not do it. Do it. But there's a payback involved. With this water, there's no payback. That has to do with the platinum that is coated on the plates, and we'll talk about that in a minute too, when we talk about the process. There is no payback. You literally have millions of electrons that are neutralizing free radicals in this water, and it's easy to drink. Oxidative stress is related to every disease, right? Free radical oxidative stress. The cure to oxidative stress, not the cure, but the balance that we have to continually do is introduce antioxidants. Free radicals come from, and what I want you to notice here is modernity, modern living. These are all things that didn't exist 100 years ago. This is our new challenge, right? You can quit all these things and go live in a cave, or you can understand that we have to introduce a balance to it. If we're trying to balance free radicals are oxidation. We need to introduce antioxidants. Antioxidants, basically, the only foods that are antioxidants are the raw fruits and vegetables. Some nuts, but mostly all food is acidic. It has good properties, but it has to be alkalized too. And we can't all eat fruit, raw fruits and vegetables because we still have these problems: tobacco, stress, cooked foods, the air we breathe, right? The minerals in our soil, the pesticides. We could eat raw fruits and vegetables, but the strongest and the easiest thing to do is change your water to this water, to electrolyzed reduced water, to Kangen water. Right? That is a huge health principle. We can become biologically younger on a cellular level. If we can do the things, if I could take my cells when they were 18 and I could look at them now, the difference is that, if I can introduce hydration to hydrate those cells, and I can introduce water to flush the toxins out of those cells, and I can introduce alkalinity to create an alkaline environment in those cells will look under the microscope the same as mine when I was 15, 18 years old. This is the concept of reverse aging. The numbers will always go. I will be 57 years old next year. I can't control that. But I can be biologically younger next year if I change my habits. All right?
I'm not sure if I can still do that.
Yeah. Now this is my favorite part of the water. This is the third concept of water, and we called it superhydrating. There's also a concept called microclustering. I'd rather talk about the process. Right? Is the molecule cluster size of all water the same? It is not. Okay, and this is where you start to see. If we look under the proverbial microscope, it's similar to an MRI. It's an electromagnetic resonance machine. We're looking at the structure of water. When we look at the structure of bottled water or tap water, we see that it's five-sided. We see that it's irregularly shaped. When we look at this water, it all looks different. When we see this water, because of the bonding and the hydrogen bonding and just the properties of this water, we see it clumpy in big clumps. We see big gangs of water. We also notice that it's a positive charge. Okay? When we send our tap water through this machine and ionize this water through the particular process of electrolysis, we are separating the waters. The water you're drinking is six-sided. In fact, it's perfectly uniform and crystalline structure. Remember we said another word for this water was hexagonal water. When we look under this water, it's all six-sided. They all look the same, and they're split up into smaller groups. Okay? It's clustered of 3 to 5 molecules as opposed to 10 to 100. It's also negatively charged, right? And so, and here's the term if you want to do if you want to research this water, look on Google Scholar or look on PubMed and use the term electrolytes reduced water, because people are too often saying alkaline water and they're throwing everything in here. And we'll talk about why alkaline water is just it's nothing short of a scam, right? So this water has got a negative charge. It's completely different in a structure, and it's smaller. And why is that important? You look at this soccer ball, it's not going to go through that net. But if I had a baseball, it would go through that net. This is simple physics, or it's simple science, right? When we talk about a smaller water, it's more penetrating. And we also talk about how will we get hydrated. Our cells are positively charged. The positively charged meaning acidic for their protection, right? There are certain parts of our body that are positively charged and acidic to ward off invaders. We don't absorb water through our cell membranes. There are little teeny six-sided holes called aquaporins. Those aquaporins are where the water comes from. They're all on the outside of that cell. Those aquaporins are six-sided and they're very small. If you've ever drinking a lot of water, regular water, and you feel bloated, it's because that water is not getting in those cells. It's sitting in your stomach and it's bloating you and it's uncomfortable. It's because there's 2 reasons. One, that water is too big to get in, and so it gets in by the very, very inefficient osmosis. It gets in there when there's so much pressure here, it'll push at the cell, and then when they equalize, it'll stop pushing in. It just has no incentive to go in because it's just too big. The other problem is the outside of the cell is positive. A positive or a positive repel. They do not attract. So the negative water and the smallness of the water are the 2 reasons why this water is completely structurally different and why you could drink this water all day and you will not get full. Right? You will go to the bathroom a lot, but the more you're going, the healthier you are for the most part. Right? But that to me is what makes drinking this water easy. And the easier it is, the more antioxidants are going to come in and the more alkalinity is going to come in. And really, to me, that's why it's the best, is because it allows us to introduce all of these great things in this water. And it's easy. To be healthy, there's only 3 things we need to do to our cells. We need to hydrate our cells, we need to alkalize our cells, and we need to get the toxins out of our cells. And that's exactly what this water does. Those are the 3 properties of this water. Right? Kangen water doesn't heal anything. Your body, your God-given body, whether you believe in whatever you believe in, whatever we came here with, we can never, not in our lifetimes, ever match the complexity or even understand 10% of the unknowns. We just never will. Our body's the miracle. The water is what our bodies need. The water is our responsibility for health. Kangen water doesn't heal anything. It only hydrates you, alkalizes you, and detoxes you better than any substance there is. That's where it is. No drug has ever healed any sickness. We talked about this. And remember when Dr. Batman Gellert said, how you get there is how you get back? Well, Plato said it in different words a lot earlier. Look for the cure within the cause. What caused you to be sick? Not when did it start? Because it probably was under the surface. It was probably brewing for years before you felt anything. Look for the cure within the cause. The body itself is the best healer. You have to ask yourself, what is my responsibility? What do I need to give to my body to make sure that it can live long? Healthy at 100 is just a book. It has nothing to do with, well, it doesn't nothing, but it's not about water. It's about paradigm shifts. It's about how we think about aging. If we know that people in other areas live to 120 years old, we need to ask questions about what those people are doing different than what we're doing, because we're not living that longer. In fact, we've peaked. I have a feeling some of us are living longer and some of us are just being kept alive with no quality, right? We've peaked in terms of our healthy years, and we're going the opposite way because we lost touch on what to put in our bodies. But this just gives you hope, and this talks about a purpose, community, physical activity, sunlight, right? Normal water. They get water from streams and everything. These are just fascinating peoples to study in the blue zones. And it's
but they happen to have the best water as well.
Yeah. Bottled water, it's all acidic. except the alkaline water, and we'll talk about that in a second. It doesn't do you any good. It's all oxidizing. It all is pentagonal, 5-sided water. It's not penetrating. Plastic is killing the planet, and it's costing you, oh my God, if you should drink your body weight in water, and if you ended up doing that with bottled water, you'd be spending $10, $15 a day on water alone. Killing the planet with the plastics. We don't know what to do with them. Plastics have a leaching effect. It doesn't matter how good that plastic is. And that sunlight hits that plastic, and even if the sunlight doesn't, we're drinking what's in that plastic. We're drinking those poisons. So let's talk about the water that is not alkaline. About half of bottled water is simply municipal water. This is Chattahoochee water. It's Coke's water, Dasani. Nothing necessarily wrong with Chattahoochee water, but it's just, and what they've done is reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis purifies the water. So if you see purified water, it sounds like a great thing. And it is, for the most part, clean. Sometimes there's, reverse osmosis goes right, but for the most part, it really cleans it. But here's what it does. It takes the minerals out of that water, right? The Japanese call it dead water. If I take Dasani and I pour it in a fishbowl and I put my little friend the fish in that thing, it's not going to live very much because there's no minerals and there's very, very little oxygen in that water. It's reverse osmosis, purified water. It's dead water. And after you've been drinking Kangen water, right, for a while, you can just turn one of those up and you feel it's dead. You just feel deadness. Until you get used to Kangen water, you probably won't feel that, but you don't. It's not alive. When they take this and pH 8, this is an alkaline water. They've taken reverse osmosis water, which we shouldn't be drinking, and they add chemicals to it that alkalize it. The chemicals in this one are, let's read the chemicals in that one.
Potassium bicarbonate, calcium chloride, magnesium chloride.
Okay, so we shouldn't be drinking those. They shouldn't be in our water. There shouldn't be ingredients in our water. So what that does is raise the pH of it. One of the things that we can do to create alkaline water is I can put Arm & Hammer baking soda in water and I have alkaline water. It's just a scam, right? Alkalizing yourself is the concept that we should stick to. So we've taken reverse osmosis water and we've thrown chemicals that we shouldn't be doing that are building up in our systems and they're causing more problems. And not only that, reverse osmosis water in general is that if you take the minerals out of something, if you take anything out of it, anything out of anything, there's a concept in science called homeostasis. If you take the minerals out of that water wants its minerals back. It wants to go back to its original state. It is going to pull the minerals from your body. It is going to pull the calcium from your bones, the phosphorus from your muscles. It's going to pull your salts out, and you are going to be peeing out the minerals that you so need. So this water not only doesn't dehydrate you, it's demineralizing you. And then when you throw chemicals on for the scam that is alkaline water, it just gets worse, right? So that's why you can't buy alkaline bottled water. Even this water, if we bottle it, it's just going to age, it's just going to oxidize, right? It's about drinking something that's alive and it's fresh. We talked about that. Kangen water is full of minerals. Kangen water is full of minerals, and we know that because the one thing about tap water that is a saving grace is that it is not demineralized. Right? They are putting chemicals in there to neutralize other chemicals. Those chemicals are horrible for you. There are at least 9 known carcinogens in the water that we drink. The water that we drink does not exist in nature. It is not clean. Even if you filter it, it's pentagonal, it's positively charged, right? But it has minerals. And those minerals are the conductors of the electrical process that allows this water to be electrolyzed. So you cannot even make Kangen water out of reverse osmosis. You need tap water. And that's the beauty of this water. It cleans the tap water and it creates.
I just want to add one thing since you talked about tap water. We get people all the time that tell us that they drink a lot of water, but they're still dehydrated. Clinically dehydrated. They go to the doctors and that's one of the things that they find out about them, and that's ridiculous, right? So it was actually going into your body, into the cells. And being hydrated at the cell level is very different from just drinking lots of water.
Right.
It just sits there.
Right. Tap water, we talked about. Tap water is, if we can see it, we can take it out, but the danger in tap water is the things that we can't see. So we neutralize it with other chemicals, and that's never a good thing. Tap water is not something we should be drinking. Kangen water, we talked about that. Let's talk about how Kangen water is made, right? These machines take your tap water, and when you turn it on, these machines automatically turn on. The water goes through a filter and it's clean. It's a charcoal filter. It takes out the chlorine and it cleans the water, takes out the TDS, the solids and everything. And then it sends through an electrolysis chamber. In this machine here, the K8, this is 8 medical grade titanium plates and they're double dipped in platinum. Right? And so what we're doing is we're sending a whole bunch of power through the highest quality metals and power system. And we are electrocuting the water. We're creating 2. Now, I don't know if you can see here, but this hose right here is making the water too. So I'll just turn it up. So, it's kind of cool. So we are making 2 different kinds of water. These waters are completely opposite. When we've electrolyzed this water, this is an acidic water. We don't drink this. It has other uses. This is just the H negative. We've split the H's so where this is just the H negative. This is literally the most healthy thing you can put in your body for 2 reasons. Because it's water and because it's less water. It's just logic, right? So through the process of electrolysis, we're making the best water. This does happen in nature. When lightning hits a lake, lightning hits an ocean, we have electrolyzed reduced water in that area. It goes down depending on the magnitude and the power of the lightning, and it exists for a while until it kind of dilutes itself. We also have this water in high mountain glaciers, water that is source water, that is up in the Himalayas, the Andes, or whatever mountain range, and it's sun-baked, and it's moving, and it's picking up minerals over rocks. That stuff is alive, and that's negatively charged, and it's got minerals, and it's great for you, right? So this water does exist in nature. The tap water does not. And then when we talk about this machine makes 7 different kinds of water. So when we split the H's, we don't just throw the positive water out. The positive water has a ton of household uses that replaces the chemicals. If we can replace the chemicals in our house, we can reduce our toxic load, furthering getting rid of that acidity, saving money, all that stuff. And so we'll talk about the 7 waters.